Welcome to From the Magazine, a podcast of Holiness Today, where you will hear from our authors and editors about everyday faith. On today's episode, T.A. Noble will be discussing identity and what it means to be crucified with Christ.
Who am I? Many people today are concerned about their identity. Who am I? They try to answer the question by what is particular to them. I am Scottish. I am Hispanic. I am Korean. I am Black. Sometimes it is a matter not so much of race or heritage, but of gender. I am male. I am a woman. Or it may be a matter of generation. I'm a baby boomer. I'm Generation X. So we define our identity by what is particular to us. And very often that leads to a sense of grievance. If our group, we feel, has been unfairly treated, has been subject to some injustice. So the Scots, along with the Irish and the Welsh, have historically nursed a sense of grievance against the much more dominating culture of the English. And Black people may well have a sense of grievance against the dominant white culture. And heaven knows, human history is chock full of ancient wrongs. Greeks were conquered and suppressed by the Turks. Arabs are at enmity with Jews. Chinese may still remember that they were invaded by the Japanese. And in our day, very often women feel a sense of grievance against men in the light of many abuses. So what is particular to my culture, my group, is divisive, and it can often lead to a sense of injustice, of oppression, of grievance. In this fallen, sinful world, perhaps it cannot be any other way. What is the Christian perspective on all of that? Now, Paul tells us, you remember he wrote, he was an Hebrew of the Hebrews. As to the law, a Pharisee, blameless. And Paul's sense of identity was tied up with that. He looked at those other cultures, those other nations, as being outside the law and providence of God. He looked down on them. But then Paul was confronted by Christ. He had to die to that old exclusiveness. He was commissioned to take the gospel of Christ to those very nations and to preach the gospel of the Christ who had died for all. Paul had found a new identity, not in his exclusive culture, but in Christ. And he wrote, you remember, I am crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. And the life I now live, I live by the faith of the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. The old ego, the old I, had to die with Christ, had to be crucified. So Paul no longer found his sense of identity in his culture or his heritage. Now, he did not despise his culture or his heritage. He remained a Jew until his dying day. And I shall always be a Scotsman, not only in this life, but I suggest to you in the life to come. But that is no longer the basis of my identity. My fundamental identity is as a child of God. My fundamental identity is in Christ. Ada Whittington was an English woman who, earlier in the 20th century, wrote these lines, putting this point so well. Not I, but Christ be honoured, loved, exalted. Not I, but Christ be seen, be known, be heard. Not I, but Christ in every look and action. Not I, but Christ in every thought and word. Not I, but Christ my every need supplying. Not I, but Christ my strength and health shall be. Christ, only Christ for spirit, soul, and body. Christ, only Christ. Live then thy life in me. And she added these words in a little chorus or refrain. Oh, to be saved from myself, dear Lord. Oh, to be lost in thee. Oh, that it may be no more I, but Christ who lives in me. May the Lord grant to answer that prayer for each one of us.
Thank you for listening to the Holiness Today podcast. If you enjoyed this production and wish to hear more, visit holinesstoday.org/podcast or find us on Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts.